Okay, I think we're live. Good morning, Morningside. My name is Thomas Pargett, and I am coming to you live from my office in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know at what point of the day you'll be watching this, but it's morning here on Friday, November 13th, Friday the 13th. I'm really hoping in 2020 that my office doesn't start on fire while we're chatting here. I'm here to present. I appreciate the opportunity from Stacy and Alex to get me in front of everybody here. And what we're going to do today, we won't be long. I think maybe 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 30. We'll see how much I ramble without an actual audience. I want to go over some things with you regarding life after college, housing, and retirement specifically. Okay, there we go. All right, our agenda today. So first off, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to answer the inevitable question, Thomas, who the heck are you and why are you talking to us about this? I'm sure that's on your mind. That's fair. Why is this bald guy with glasses here to chat with us about these things? I'll go over that. We'll talk about housing options and budgeting for housing, long-term savings, emergency cash, retirement savings. I do have one slide on some reading materials post-college that I'll talk with you about. And then I want to just give everybody access to me. Email me, text me, whatever you'd like. I think it's really important in the alumni network to have the ability to access alums. And I certainly have that as an alum. I've had some great mentors in my life, and everybody needs an introduction at some point. So I'm going to make myself more than available to you to see if you guys have any questions about anything after this. All right, so I'm going to look to the side often as I figure out how to go here. All right, so who am I? Thomas Pargett's last name is Pargett, like Target with a P, gets misspelled all of the time. My bachelor's is in education from Morningside College, but you guys are Morningside University now, so I'm dating myself just a hair. Graduated in 2008. From Morningside, and my MBA is in financial psychology from Creighton University. Just got done with that this year. I'm currently a senior wealth advisor for Bergen KDV. Bergen KDV. K is in kitten, D is in dog, V is in Victor. You guys can see that there, but we get that mispronounced all the time. www.bergenkdv.com. Check us out. We have job openings. Would love to see some Morningside alum join our team. We've got offices all over the Midwest, so you don't have to come to Omaha if you don't want to, although we'd love to have you, so check us out. So I'm a certified financial planner for the Certified Board of Standards, which is one, or the CFP Board of Standards. One of the reasons why I'm somewhat qualified to talk with you about retirement, and I'm a certified financial behavior specialist as well. And I married Kelly. Her maiden name is Pudence, and you can see her there. She is the class of '09 for Morningside. We live in Gretna, Nebraska with our 3 children, Reese, our daughter, Alex, our 6-year-old son, and Sam, our 2-year-old son. So as an alum and as somebody who works in financial services and wealth management, I feel as though I've got the ability to just give you a little coaching on what it looks like for budgeting housing, what it looks like to rent, what it looks like to own, and what it looks like and what you should be on the lookout for regarding long-term retirement savings. All right, let's start with housing. Life after college, housing, hashtag take me back to college. You'll all probably think of that at some point. I wish I could go back to college. I thought about that more than once. But when you're presented with these adult decisions, renting and owning, sometimes it's a lot easier to just think back when you were in the dorms and ordering Domino's pizza. I think about that often. Anyway, as an alum, when you are done with your degree, you guys all know this, you'll have the opportunity to rent or to own pretty much right away. Depending on your financial position, depending on the job that you get, you could, and depending on the savings that you've incurred in college, or depending on if you're going to get help from your parents or your grandparents, you could essentially be a homeowner right away. I've known people that do that. I have a colleague who just graduated from Minnesota State, Mankato. He bought a house 2 months after he graduated because he had prepared for that. So you're going to have and now he's got roommates paying him rent, pretty smart decision. You're going to have the ability to make a choice. The most common one right after college is renting. For obvious reasons, it's a little less, a lot less expensive, and you don't have as much to prepare for. So, with that, let's talk about renting. So, if you are in a position when you graduate that you're going to move or you're going to take a job, or you could even stay in Sioux City and maybe you're most likely as seniors, you're probably living off campus now. I don't know what the structure is anymore, but everybody in my class was, everybody in Kelly's class was. But if you have to find a new place to live and you find that you're going to rent or renting is what's most appropriate for your situation, let's talk about the pros, right? I think you probably know this, but coming at you as an adult who's done that, been there, done that, I've rented, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different places after college, post college, 3 apartments, 1 house, and I've owned 2 houses now at separate times, and we're just getting ready to buy our 3rd. So we don't own 3 at once, but just getting ready to make our 3rd house purchase. So I've been there, I've done that. So I'll talk with you about the pros of renting as an adult. One, it's affordable. That's pretty well known, right? You are not paying a whole bunch of things at once. You're just paying a rent payment. 2, the flexibility to move again. If you sign a lease, when you're in the renting world as an adult, you could go month by month, you could go annual, and I've never seen a lease that's longer than a year. So be prepared for that. If you get an opportunity to rent and somebody presents you, a landlord or an apartment presents you with a 2 to 3 year lease, I'd be hesitant with that. Just keep that on your mind. They may discount it for you. Your rent may be discounted, but part of the pros of renting is the flexibility to move again. So 1 year is standard. Monthly is standard as well. Now you have to pay up for that. If your annual lease is $1,000 a month, they'll say if you lease monthly, you're going to pay $1,150 a month or $1,100 a month. That's because they're letting you out of that, or they're giving you the ability to move basically at any point in time. So you're, depending on your job or your career, a 1 year lease may be more appropriate, but it also a monthly lease may be appropriate too. But the flexibility is there, right? You don't have to sell anything to move like you do when you're a homeowner. The only thing you have to wait for when you're renting is your lease to expire, and that's standard. So your flexibility to move again as a renter is a huge pro on your end. Unless you have the ability to just buy houses while you already own 1 house, very few people do, especially at this age and your age and even my age. If you want to move out of a house you own, you've got to sell it, and that takes some time, and that can be a huge headache, trust me. So a huge pro about renting is the flexibility to move again. I have liquidity on there, and that's specific to renters because your expenses in renting should be very, very low. You should have a rent payment, you've got utilities, you've got cable, you've got wireless, whatever you end up doing. But outside of that, and liquidity kind of falls in line with that last bullet point, less liability, maintenance is covered. Renting is a great place to build your savings and add liquidity to your life because you just have less to pay for. If there's a toilet that breaks, that's not on you. It shouldn't be unless you took a jackhammer to it. That's not on you. That's on the landlord. If the air conditioner goes out, that's not on you. That's on the landlord. If your basement floods, that's not on you. That's the landlord. So those things that you don't have to pay for allow you to add to your liquidity, which is basically your cash savings in this instance. So liquidity and less liability, maintenance is covered, really go hand in hand. And then roommates, right? Now you can have roommates if you own a home. I've seen that, but usually at that point in your life when you're buying homes, unless you're like my colleague who I spoke of earlier, that was a very tactical decision that he made, strategic decision. When you're buying a home, you're usually with a family, your wife, your spouse, your husband. You don't want roommates to your life, right? Renting is a great place to add roommates, cut the cost of rent. So that's a huge, huge advantage to even add to your liquidity. And so once again, that liability maintenance is covered. If there's a roof, shingles that need replacing or anything like that, not on you. That's a huge, huge, huge pro of renting. All right, the cons, renting continued. The cons of renting. So there's no equity ownership when you rent, and you probably understand this. Maybe you don't, and I shouldn't assume that you do or you don't. But if you rent, you don't own what you're living in, and you're not building equity. Houses, or the housing market, is by nature an appreciating asset, whereas cars are a depreciating asset. So they're very, very opposite there. You drive a car off a lot and you buy it, it's immediately worth less than when you bought it. If you went to turn around and sell it back to the dealer, they'd pay less for it. Cars are a depreciating asset, unless it's a absolute collectible, and then you have to keep it in a garage, and it's just crazy. You don't ever want to drive those cars. So your standard to work, to school, to your social life car is a depreciating asset. Houses are opposite. In fact, in some cases, the older a house is, the more valuable it is, depending on the upkeep and depending on the location. So when you buy a home, if you buy a home for $100,000, and let's say you have a $50,000 loan on that home, well, you've got $50,000 of equity in that home. You put towards $50,000 and you own $50,000 of that home. Now, if you sell that home in 5 years for $150,000, you take the cash and you own that gain, right? You get to own that. You pay off whatever's left on the loan, and then all that cash is yours. So that's equity ownership. In renting, you don't get that. You just pay rent. Now, that goes back to the pro, is you also don't pay off the little knickknacks of maintenance that go along with owning, but you don't have any equity ownership. You have the limited ability to make it yours. You've probably seen this if you've been renting throughout college, but with the very first home that my wife and I, Kelly and I, rented, the owner wouldn't let us paint anything. It was just the whitest house you could see. Every wall was white, the outside was white. It was just very bland. But it wasn't ours, and he said, no painting. You can't do it. Okay. Limited amount of stuff on the outside that you can do. Landscaping, no, I don't want you messing up my house. You're not going to make a garden, right? So you just have the limited ability to make it yours. It's literally just a house that you're a guest in. Okay. Annoying neighbors, and that can be an apartment, but there are also annoying neighbors in homes too, trust me. You guys have probably seen this or heard this. Loud neighbors upstairs, downstairs. If you're sharing a wall with somebody, if that person on the other side of the wall isn't the most considerate person, you're going to feel that. That can be quite annoying, right? And then landlord issues. I'm fortunate to not have had this happen to me, but somebody else owns the home that you live in. I have plenty of friends that have had landlord issues. They can be jerks. They can be irresponsible. They can not respond, right? If you have an air conditioner that goes out in July and it's not your responsibility, that is the landlord's responsibility, and they don't respond to your request, that's a problem, right? Because you don't necessarily want to pay for that air conditioner to get fixed, because you may not get reimbursed for that, and it's not your house. It should be the landlord. So that can be an issue. Once again, I've not had that personal experience. I've had great landlords where we've lived, but you're putting yourself in basically someone else's hands at that point. You're saying, I'll pay you to live in this house that's yours, and there needs to be an agreement that they'll be respond to you and responsible. Doesn't always the case. So cons of renting, the pros and cons can certainly outweigh each other depending on the situation. I've had wonderful, wonderful renting experiences. Not everyone has, but it 100% is more economic, especially as you start out. For you, leaving college and starting your job, renting, and if you can have roommates and split rent, can be very, very, very economically beneficial to you, without question. All right, let's talk about home ownership. The pros, well, that house is a pro, right? You're not going to be able to rent that house, trust me. Maybe an Airbnb, but no one's going to let you rent that for months after months. So the pros are something like that, making it yours. living where you want to live. So definitely a pro is the equity, right? Like I said, it's an appreciating asset. You're making an investment. Now, homes can go backwards. The housing market does not always go up. So don't walk away from this saying, "Oh my gosh, Thomas said homes go straight up." They don't. You guys are probably not old enough or really um, aware enough of what happened in 2008, 2009, and that is exactly when I was graduating. I was watching the housing market fall, the Great Recession. I'm sure you've read about it or heard about it, but if you haven't, please do. Home prices can fall. Home market can go backwards. But just like any other appreciating asset, homes have shown to grow over time. So it's not an automatic growth rate, but over the course of time, homes go like this, and they do grow. So you are buying an asset that is expected to appreciate over time. If when you go to sell that asset, if it's worth less than what you paid for it, that's just part of the risk. But unless you're in a hurry, you should really strategically time the fact that I'm not going to sell this house until I have a gain. So a pro to that is you can build equity and you can own an appreciating asset. Home values do historically appreciate over time, but they are subject to volatility. It's yours, right? That's a huge piece, especially as you start to grow a family. I can vouch for that firsthand. Kelly and I bought our first home when our daughter Reese was 4 months old because we were ready. We had worked for it, and we just wanted it to be ours. And the first thing Kelly did was paint Reese's room because it's yours. That's a huge psychological benefit, without question. And now, if you have roommates, like I gave the example of my colleague, if you have roommates now, they're paying your mortgage. So your roommates are actually building equity in your home for you. You take out a $50,000 loan. That's a small loan, but just as an example. You take out a $50,000 loan, you're going to have a mortgage payment, which we'll get into. If you have people paying that for you, they're paying down your debt, building up your equity. That's a really, really nice advantage if you are in the investment game or in the investment industry or the home investment industry, which a lot of people are, or if you're young and able to make a purchase on a home and have roommates, you are the landlord now. That's a really, really positive thing. Home ownership continued. The cons. All right, so the cons. Upkeep plus maintenance can be money. And I just want to give everybody notice. That is actually a picture of my house right now. So just kidding. I hope you are laughing. I'm going to tell jokes, and I can't even tell if you're laughing, but I hope you are. It's not my house, and that's not anybody's house, but that just goes to show the upkeep and the maintenance can be dollars. Trust me, I'll tell you a story. Don't sleep on property taxes. That's a big part of home ownership. Essentially how that works, and depending on what state you live in, it's always going to be different. What county you live in, it's always going to be different. But for example, Gretna is in Sarpy County. Property taxes are assessed annually, and they're assessed based on the property, yours, and the properties around you. So if you are in a very, very nice, well-kept, or historic, or neighborhood that's even in demand, people want to move there, excuse me, your property taxes are going to go up. You have to pay for that. And you really don't have a say in that. You get a postcard in the mail. They tell you what your property taxes have been assessed for the year upcoming that you're going to have to pay. You can argue that in the local county court, I believe, or the local county district. I've never argued it because it's a worthless argument. You can argue it, but they're rarely ever going to give. I mean, your property tax bill is your property tax bill. You might have a shot at bringing it down a little bit, but it's not going to be enough, or it's not going to be huge. So that can be a big ouchie from a home ownership perspective. Is the more valuable your property is, and you're thinking to yourself, great, my home value is rising. It is, but you're paying for that home value rising. You have to pay taxes on that. With renting, it's a little different. The home value is rising. The landlord has to he has to account for that, and he will by raising rents if needed. But if you're splitting it, if you've got help from renters, if you've got roommates, that incremental push that he'll raise on rents is going to be taken care of on your end by the different payments coming in. If you're a homeowner and there's one salary or two salaries, and you get a property tax bill that's now a couple $1,000s more, you have no choice but to pay that. None. So don't sleep on that. That's got to be a big understanding of when you are when you're looking for a home. Where is it? What neighborhood is it in? What are the property taxes? Don't avoid houses just because of property taxes, but you have to be aware of them. Annoying neighbors are always possible. You can't escape that unless you buy a big home in the country. But annoying neighbors are absolutely there and possible. So upkeep plus maintenance. Just to give you an example, right? We bought a new construction home in 2016, brand new. We're the only ones who've ever lived in it. Brand new. We had water in our basement 2 years in, multiple times. So the first time we tried to fix it, we tried to do something around the yard, relieve some, because we live on a downhill slope, relieve some of the pressure or relieve some of the pooling of the water as the water came downhill, settled in our yard, then came down to the basement. So we hired a landscaping company. They came out, they did some drain tiles and all this good stuff on our yard to relieve that. We thought that would take care of it. We paid for that, a nice amount. 6 months later, nope, water back in the basement. So now we have to pay for a company to come in and install a sump pump in our basement. That was not cheap. That whole enterprise, that whole adventure that we went on with our everything, our water, or our yard and our basement was $6,000. I mean, you just have to be ready for that. And we had a brand new, it was 2 years old, and the outside was waterproofed. I mean, they did everything. It was well built. But if water wants to find its way in, it's going to find its way in. And there was not a crack in our foundation, but there was just, it had found its way in. It had seeped in slowly over time, and it had gotten in. And now they've installed the right precautions to not let that happen again. But we absolutely had to pay for that. Then you have to pay for the carpet to get dry. Then you have to pay for a company to come look at whether you have mold in your walls because there was water coming down. That's not to scare you away, but it is a bit of a reality check. Your home could be brand spanking new and something could go wrong. So this home that Kelly and I are building now is going to be brand new. We are the ones building it. We told our builders, you got to put a sump pump in now at construction. We don't want to do it later. Of course they will, but we learned our lesson. Right, that was hard. And that's up there. That can happen to anybody at any time. No home is 100% proof of maintenance or upkeep of any kind. So you have to be prepared for that. All right. So how do I know if I'm ready to buy a home? All right. So I coach everybody that asks me this question. You have to start understanding two things. One, your cash flow. You have to understand your cash flow, and we'll get into budgeting in just a second. What can you afford, right? So if your rent is $800 a month, you need to ask yourself, and you need to do it in your budget, could you take on a $1,200 a month mortgage and still be able to meet all your financial needs? That's only a question you can answer. Your mortgage is going to be bigger than your rent payment in almost every situation. If it's not, great, you're in a really good spot. But it most likely will be. So you have to prepare for that. So could you handle an increase in your monthly payments? That's question number one. Is your savings account prepared for you to become a homeowner? I put everybody at the conservative number of $10,000 in your savings account, ready for your house. It doesn't, now that's not a requirement. That's not, you could have 1,000, you could have 100, right? It's not a requirement. But in my experience, that $10,000 number is a really good place to start. I just gave you the example. We had to fork over $6,000 in 4 months to just get ready for, or just take care of the water in our basement, right? If we had not had any savings, where does that come from? A credit card? line of credit, possibly. Those are options, but now you're in debt, right? Just to fix something in your basement. So I would start, if somebody asks me tomorrow, what should I have in my savings account before I buy a home? $10,000. Now that does not include the money that you need to put on the down payment. So let's go to number 2. Evaluate your savings. So emergency account, ultimately that's the same thing as I talked about with that $10,000 numbers. $10,000 number. You have to have a sleep at night number too, or not two, but that needs to correlate together. Those need to be together. What number? What do you have to have in your bank account for you to sleep at night? Is it 10? Is it 5? Is it 3? Is it 15? Is it 25? Everybody's got a different one. Kelly and I have a different one. We've had to come to an agreement of where we can both sleep at night, and that's realistic. So you have to have a sleep at night number, and that's got to be able to take care of those emergencies that happen, like the water in your basement, like the landscaping that we had to pay for, like anything, the roof, all of it. Now, roof in most cases will be subject to your insurance, but you're still gonna have to pay a deductible. That could be $1,000. You have to be prepared, and I think 10,000 is a good place to start. But you have to ultimately determine your sleep at night number. So the down payment. Now, once again, this is not law, but this is advice. Your targeted down payment should be 20% of the market value of the home that you want to buy. You can get a loan if you have less than that. You can. If you have salary, if you have good credit history, if you have earnings that they can see, you should be able to get a loan if you have less than 20%. But it's not going to be the greatest loan in the world, and I'll tell you why. You're going to have to probably pay mortgage insurance. I'll tell you what that is. And you're just not going to have as much equity in your home right away. And the more you put down on your home, the less your payment's going to be because your loan is smaller, right? So for example, if you want to buy a $200,000 home, you should be ready to bring $40,000 of cash to the table. So 10% of 200,000 is 20,000. 20% would be 40,000. Now your debt at the bank with your loan is 160,000. That's what you'd be paying off with your mortgage. Now, if that example holds true and you had my $10,000 recommendation in cash, you'd essentially have $50,000 in the bank. You're going to bring 40 of that to the closing table to buy your house, and you have $10,000 left over for emergency. That's how that math adds up. Is that required? No, it's not, but that's as sound as advice as I can give you to start. If you wanted to buy a $200,000 home and you wanted to show up and put a $5,000 to $6,000 down, you probably could. Don't quote me on that exactly, but banks will give out loans if you have less than 20%, but that doesn't mean it's the greatest debt to take on. All right, what's included in a mortgage? This is something I learned post-college, right before actually we bought our home. Kelly and I rented for 4 years, and I think for 3.5 years, I didn't even know what a mortgage was. I thought it was just a payment, like basically a rent payment. There's a little more than that. So it's called PITI, P-I-T-I. So the principal balance of your loan with the bank, it's part of it. There's 4 parts to it, sometimes 5. So principal, interest, the annual interest payment included in the terms of your loan is paid monthly through your mortgage. So you got principal payment, interest payment. Taxes, go back to property taxes. The annual property tax bill on your home is paid monthly through your mortgage. So the county basically communicates with your bank on what your taxes are, and then your bank will structure your payment to include paying the county property taxes on a monthly basis. And then insurance. You have to have homeowners insurance. Well, you don't have to, but you should have homeowners insurance. Everybody needs to, unless you're completely self-insurable. Some of my clients are self-insurable. Nobody on this call is. I'm not self-insurable in this manner. Insurance. So your annual homeowners insurance premium is paid monthly through your mortgage, your taxes, your interest, your principal. P-I-T-I. Now, mortgage insurance. That is going to come into play if your down payment is not big enough, okay? It's charged to you by the lender if your down payment is not big enough. The terms of how long and how much you will pay mortgage insurance varies. So if your down payment is less than 20% of the value, there's going to be some form of mortgage insurance in your loan, and that's basically a fifth payment bundled into that one payment. So if your mortgage is $1,500 a month, that's going to include principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and maybe mortgage insurance, depending on your situation. So that's another reason as to why a bigger down payment is helpful for you. It's not only going to make your loan less, your payment less, but you're not going to pay mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance is essentially the bank is taking out an insurance policy on you. They're saying, hey, look, John Doe here brought only 3% of the down payment to the table. We think he's a good candidate. We think he's fine, but we just want to protect ourselves. We're going to take out an insurance policy on him. So if he defaults, we can pay off that loan. And oh, by the way, he's going to pay us premiums. So you're essentially paying an insurance policy on yourself to the bank. If you can avoid that, that's helpful, right? It's just another payment that you're making that doesn't add any value to your life. So that's what's included in your mortgage. Shut the front door. How am I supposed to save 20% for a home? I know. It's hard. I know. I'm sorry to tell you it's hard, but it is. So here's what really Kelly and I did, and we still do to this day. We have 3 children. I mean, cash is just, it's in, it's out, it's gone. So we still do this. I highly recommend falling in love with Excel spreadsheets. I'm huge into that. Kelly doesn't like it, but I do it, and then I report to her, basically. Debits and credits. Keep track of them religiously. You're basically your own personal accountant. What comes in, what goes out, what's left over, what goes out. It's constant. Excel spreadsheets are the best calculator tool to keep track of that and to really allow yourself to set a budget and get an understanding of where you are, get an understanding of your surplus, get an understanding of your capabilities to pay this, to pay that. They're so easy. If you've gone through Morningside without ever using one, I mean, you're lucky. But now is the time to start. If you're a pro at Excel, great, use them, wonderful. Understand what you need to save first, then use the remainder to live. That's a pretty normal piece of advice, but whatever comes in, save a chunk, and you'll have to figure that out once you get your job, but you should set a percentage of savings, and then whatever's left over, that's what you live on. And if there's not enough left over to make a mortgage payment, you're not ready for a home, unless you can find roommates that you can trust and will pay you. But principally, you're not ready for a home. Walmart, Baker's, and Aldi are your friends. Spend time with your friends. We still shop at Baker's all the time. Hy-Vee is great. Hy-Vee is expensive. I'll buy some craft beer from Hy-Vee, full disclosure, but everything else from Hy-Vee, Baker's is a lot more economical. Walmart's economical. I don't know if there's an Aldi in Sioux City. There's one in Lincoln, and there's a couple in Omaha. We don't shop there anymore. We've graduated to Baker's, but boy, Aldi was our best friend for when our oldest 2 were babies, and we were buying formula and diapers, and oh my Lord. Spend time with your friends. Those are some of the great places to buy groceries. Very, very economical. Try to be like Warren, right? That's Warren Buffett. Don't save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. Now, Warren Buffett's one of the richest men in the history of the world. If you can become him, you can spend whatever you want. But that's a simple principle that has gotten him to excel in a lot of areas of his life, especially when he was younger. So if we all try to be like Warren every day with our money, I think we'll all be in pretty good shape. All right, life after college, retirement. I've gone a lot more than 15 minutes. I talk too much. I hope this is helpful. We won't be too much longer. I've got about 4 slides left. So life after college, retirement. Hashtag, I feel like that will never happen. That's normal. It's okay. You can get there, trust me. That's what I help people do all day long, and I help people who have made it all day long. So you can do it. So the power of compound interest. I'm not going to get into the mathematics of it. If you're a finance major or an accounting major, you've probably seen that in some capacity. This is not a PowerPoint on what that is, but really just how it's helpful. Here's the ultimate secret. Save as much as you can for the long term as soon as you can. It's really that simple. The sooner you can put yourself in a position to put money away for the long term and invest it, the better off you're going to be. Look at this graph. You can't really even see the line, but Scott stops investing here, right? He's accumulated just a hair, right? But he stops and he just lets it grow. That's compound interest. James starts here, so he doesn't even start till he's 26, 27. Scott stops, and Scott still gets more than James. Now, there's a lot of variables to that. Don't take that as the Bible, but that's just an example of what compound interest is. And essentially the definition of compound interest is it's really your money working harder than you are. So the growth of your money gets to one point, and then that grows to another, and then that grows to another, and it just compounds upon itself, okay? As plain vanilla as you can possibly get. Save as much as you can for the future as soon as you can, okay? The best principle you can hear right there. So the time value of money. I'm going to go over this with you real quick. I don't want to get too mathy here with you, but I think this is helpful. So let's say you finish up school, you get your degree, and have that full-time job by age 25. You're just rocking at life right now. Good job. Here are some saving scenarios that assume you plan to retire at age 25. All right, so 25 to 65, what's that, 40 years? You've got 40 years to save. Now, most of you are probably a couple years younger than 25 right now. So don't feel like, I don't want you to disengage from my secret that I just told you. But you can still get to these numbers in 40 years if you start at 25. Get your feet underneath you, pay off some of your loans or as much as you can if you have loans. Don't get into credit card debt. Just get your foundation set. Worst case scenario, you start at 25, you're still going to be in a really good spot. If you can start at 21, 22, absolutely. That's the secret, right? But don't feel like if you don't start at 21, 22, 23, it's over. It's not over. I'm using these examples at 25 just to give you an idea. So scenario number one, $2,400 a year into a retirement account, 401k or an IRA. I'll talk about those in a second. That's $200 a month. So if you can find $200 a month to go into one of those accounts, if that grows at an annual rate of 7% from age 25 to 65, you would have $479,125 set aside for retirement at age 65. Not bad. And that's a static contribution, right? That's not saying that you're going to put more here or more this year, more that year. That's just a flat 200. As you grow and as your career grows, you're typically going to save a little bit more each year. Okay, as your kids get out of the house, you can chunk more in. That's a static $200 a month. Not bad. You're basically at $500,000. Scenario number two, same story, $300 a month, same timeline, same growth rate for 40 years, $718,000. So almost $225,000 more just by doing $100 more a month. Huge deal, right? Huge deal. Scenario three, $400 a month. It's $100 a week. Can you find $100 a week? 7% for 40 years, $958, basically $1 million, give or take. You guys can understand what scenario number five would yield. Easily $1 million if we went to $500 a month. So, and once again, that's static. As your career grows, as you get raises, as you get promotions, take that growth or take that savings rate and add 100 to it. So if you start at $200 a month, do that for a couple of years. Then go to $300 a month. Then go to $400. That blows these numbers out of the water, right? Because you're just adding to it. This is just an example of what we call the time value of money. The more money you can put in, the more time that you have, the more it grows. All right, take advantage of your employer-sponsored plan. So this is that 401k stuff I was talking about. So all of you, for the most part, I bet, will get a job with some sort of company. Unless you're an entrepreneur at this age, awesome, good for you. You have some self-employed retirement planning options. That is not included here because that's just going to be such a small fraction of you. But for those of you who are just leaving college and you get a job at a company or an institution of some kind, you're going to have an employer-sponsored plan. It could be a 401k, it could be a 403b, 457b, it could be a 401a. There's a couple of them. 401k, 403b are the most popular. Okay, that's why I listed those. 403b would be like if you get a job at Morningside, they'll offer a 403b. If you get a job at Creighton, they'll offer 403b. And nonprofits offer 403bs. For-profits offer 401ks. My company is a 401k. Morningside is a 403b. Same thing, just different tax code, different tax laws. The company you work for will offer a matching program of some kind. Take advantage. It's free money. Example, John Doe earns $40,000 a year from Vandelay Industries. Raise your hand if you're a Seinfeld fan. That's where Vandelay Industries comes from. Anyway, Vandelay Industries matches 100%. This is an example. 100% up to 3% of John's 401k contributions. Now, that's a real example. Companies are doing that. So what that means is if John contributes $1,200 a year, $100 a month, that's 3% times 40,000. Vandelay will match that entire contribution. So this means they as a company will also contribute $1,200 a year just because John did. So $2,400 a year is going into John's 401k because of the company's match. So if company A matches 100% up to 4%, do your best to contribute that 4% so you get a full match. So every dollar you put in, they're going to match the exact same. That's free money. The example that I give to participants when we work with 401k plans is if your local bank said, let's do Security National Bank or that Wells Fargo right in the corner there by campus. If Wells Fargo announced, hey, all Morningside students, if you bring in if you make $100 deposit over the next week, we're going to give you $100. You have $200 in your bank account. Everybody would do it. Nobody would raise an eyebrow, right? Oh, okay, I'll do it. And then you withdraw and you go downtown. That's what I would have done. But don't withdraw this. That's bad advice. Don't withdraw this. This is for the long term. What they're doing, these companies will do that. They're rewarding you for participating in these long-term plans. Take advantage of the reward, okay? It is free money. You literally have to do nothing but contribute something from your paycheck, and they're going to give the same. So as an example too, when you start making more money and you say, you know what, I'm going to contribute now 10% of my salary. Well, that match isn't going to go anywhere because it's capped 100% up to 3% of John's contributions. So they're not going to go above 3. But if you put in 10, they'll put in 3 for you. They'll still match up to your 3. You're putting in 7% more, but you're still getting free money. So the more the better. At minimum, do everything you can to take advantage of the match. It's free money. You don't have to do anything. Keep your job and contribute on your own, and that's what you get. Pretty good deal. All right, last 2 slides. All right, so I want to talk about just 3 things, 3 books that I've read that have had, without question, the biggest impact on me as a human, as a father, as a husband, as a professional, all of it. Life After College books, #The Learning Never Stops. It doesn't. I know you're probably all tired of being in school. I get that. But if you can continue your desire to learn, you're going to be in a really, really, really good position. So these 3 books, if you haven't read them, none of them are going to take you long. They're very, very short. I mean, I can't even tell you how much these 3 books have impacted me with all of it. Like I said, all the characteristics of husband, father, professional, human being in general. Unbelievable books. The Go-Giver, a little story about a powerful business idea. Bob Burg and John David Mann wrote that. This is Water. I put these in the wrong order. This is Water on the far right. David Foster Wallace. That was actually a commencement speech that David Foster Wallace gave, and they put it in book form. So it'll take you 15 minutes to read that. It's just a speech. And The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. If you do anything, or if you get ready for graduation and you ask for gifts, ask for these books. It's not going to take you a long time to read. Internalize them. I hope that they impact you as much as they impacted me. I've read them multiple times. I go back to them often. Very, very, very good. And I hope they're good for you. Everybody's going to have different ideas and different motivations, but without question, these three incredibly, incredibly impactful in my life in a positive way. All right, let's wrap it up. Reach out to me. I am happy to help. Hashtag Morningside Alumni Network. That's one of the reasons why we go to school. That's one of the reasons why we pay tuition, right? Something you get out of it outside of a degree, which is absurdly valuable. And for anybody who wants to argue with me about how degrees are losing their value, I'll take that argument on any day of the week, especially grad school. I'll take that argument on any day of the week. I'm high advocate for grad school, but that's for another time. Reach out to me. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I think I'm reasonably funny on Twitter. You can send me an email and text me. I don't care. Text me. Just tell me who you are, because I won't know who it is, and tell me you listened to this presentation, and you can tell me if it was awful too. But I'm happy to help. Alumni networks are a huge, huge deal. They're important. I'm a part of Morningside Alumni Network, the Creighton Alumni Network. Both have been absurdly valuable to me. And that's part of what I've learned in those books, is passing it on, right? Helping out others too. It's not all about me. I'm happy to help make introductions for you, advice on grad school, advice on renting, advice on buying. Come to me, text me, email, whatever. Come to me. I'm happy to help. And if you need any introductions in Omaha and Sioux City, Sioux Falls, Minneapolis, Des Moines, those are some, Lincoln, Nebraska, I live there. Those are some areas where Kansas City, I could definitely make an introduction into the right industry and be happy to help. So I hope this was valuable. And if you want to text me and tell me it was garbage, I open that criticism as well. And I'm open for that feedback too. So have a really, really good day or night or morning or whatever time you're watching this. And go Mustangs.